Glad to have you all here tonight to, I feel like we're welcoming Cynthia back. As some of you obviously know, and many of you may not know, that Cynthia is our neighbor, lives just a few doors away from us here, when she's in town, I guess we could say, which is not all that often. She's been in many parts of the world over the last number of years and comes back, usually around this time in the summer, to regale us with her travels from many parts of scary places in the world, Afghanistan, Kurdistan, and so we're very pleased to welcome her back tonight, and glad that you've all come to hear her too. So I say we'll welcome Cynthia back with open arms and get going here. Thank you.
Because we're going to go to we're going to cover 6 states in India. And I'm going to try to do a little bit of a different format than usual. And before I would advance each slide, say something about each slide, that takes forever. So I'm showing a lot more slides, and I'm going to be just summarizing the state of what I saw in that particular state, and then running the slides in most of the folders. Okay, so basically this is India. Over here we have Southeast Asia and China up here, and here over here Pakistan, Afghanistan. I was living in Afghanistan for 2.5 years, so therefore every time I got a week off, and in the 2.5 years I was there, I had 6 weeks off, all of which were either it was either the New Year's holiday, which is a Zoroastrian New Year they celebrate, or it was an Islamic holiday. These were why I had holidays. And it was usually just a week, so I would go to India. Okay, so we're going to start off with the first trip, and that was to the south, Tamil Nadu, it's called. And you see this town here, Pondicherry. This area, especially this town, was colonized by the French originally, before the British Raj, or the British Empire. And I went to Madras, where the Madras cloth comes from, but it's no longer called that, it's called Chennai now. We went to Chennai, we went to Pondicherry, and I'm going to tell you a few things about that before I run the slides. Actually, no, I think this one I'm going to talk as I run the slides. Basically, this is a guy wearing a French hat to show the French influence of Pondicherry in Tamil Nadu. I went with a colleague from the American University of Afghanistan, a guy who was about 20 years younger than me, and he really wanted to get out of Afghanistan as I did. And one of the main reasons he wanted to get out of Afghanistan was to drink beer. He loved to drink beer and he loved to smoke cigarettes. So anyway, but he was a perfect gentleman and a very good traveling companion, because anything I said, let's go here, he'd say, oh, okay, anything you want, Cynthia. So he sort of was, you know, my sort of bodyguard, not really, because everything was safe. But we were still sort of, you know, trying to get feel our wings after being so confined in Afghanistan. And I wanted to start off by asking, which I forgot to ask, is how many times has somebody sent you off and said to you, live dangerously? They never say that. They say stay safe. Everybody says stay safe. But that I thought, you know, we're leaving Afghanistan, which was dangerous, and we went to a safe part of the world, Tamil Nadu, although, in fact, that's where Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated by Tamil terrorists 20 years ago. But anyway, things were fine, and we stayed at this place that was right next to a mosque. And guess what? It was the week of Muhammad, the Prophet's birthday. So we were in this place where we stayed had been a former Maharaja's palace, but it was really down on its luck. A little bit seedy, but cheap, and it was right next to the mosque. So we had rooms on the back, and they said, no, you don't want rooms on the back. They're going to be preaching 24 hours a day for 7 days. But we said, no, we want rooms on the back. And we got a wonderful view of the mosque, the proceedings. They feed the public. They get these pots big enough to put, you know, people in, and make huge amounts of rice and all this stuff and feed the public. So we got to witness that. Another thing was, as I was telling you about my traveling companion, Andy, who wanted to drink beer and smoke cigarettes. And so we're going to see him. And we're going to see the lodgings near the mosque, as well as the pots that the food was in. And then after that, we went down to Pondicherry, which had been the French colony, and we went to we stayed one night in an ashram, which was founded by a yogi named Sri Aurobindo. Well, anyway, in this ashram, on every room, there's a picture of the yogi and his female assistant who was called the mother. And they're both dead now, but the ashram lives on. Well, on every bedroom wall, there is a picture of the yogi and the mother. And my traveling companion, Andy, couldn't stand this because, of course, he couldn't drink beer and he couldn't smoke there either. So we ended up staying there one night, and then he was like, let's get out of this place, you know. So you will see a picture of them, the very picture that was on the bedroom wall. And we went to some Hindu temple complexes in Tamil Nadu. You're going to see pictures of people doing puja. Now, puja means worship in Hinduism, and usually they give candies, flowers to the statues of the gods, and they also usually have some kind of a marking with either vermilion or sandalwood on their foreheads. So that would indicate a Hindu. And of course, we will see the sacred cow, a picture of that. And then the fruit down in the south, of course, is very exotic. And the one particular fruit, the jackfruit, is huge. And you're going to see a jackfruit that makes people look dwarfed. Okay, so I'm going to run these without music, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let them run. That's the yogi and the mother. Okay, I have to say something about this. Okay, the Hindu trinity is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Shiva is the destroyer. And so this is Shiva. And we went to a wonderful museum in Chennai or Madras and walked around. And of course, a lot of these statues are very erotic, you know, very curvaceous, you know, big breasts, all this stuff. And so I got some choice pictures of Andy looking at these. Okay, that's it. Now, he wasn't drunk, but he was just, you know, sick of being in Afghanistan. Okay, and there he is looking at the statue. A little bit of comic relief here. Okay. Now, this was the guy we met, and the food in the South is called thali. And it's all vegetarian. It's served on a banana leaf. This guy was staying at the same hotel we were at, and so he traveled with us for a couple of days. A very interesting man. That's the mosque at night. They're celebrating Muhammad's birthday.
Is that the Eid al-Fitr?
Sorry?
Eid al-Fitr?
No, it's Muhammad's birthday.
I know, but there's a...
No, it's not. It's not after Ramadan. It wasn't near Ramadan. And there's the cooking. That was right under my balcony. Can you believe that? I'm surprised I didn't get cooked too.
Did it smell good?
I don't remember smelling it. This is a Hindu temple in the inland, and we, you know, the temples are wonderful. That she's making a mandala on the ground, and the temples are wonderful because they're just such hives of life, bells and singing and chanting and people doing puja.
Do they have blondes there?
Blondes?
That looked like a blonde.
She had white hair.
Oh, I see.
Okay, and women do a lot of construction work there. So you see this beautiful young woman in the green skirt. Fascinated me. She's so pretty with that sand on her head. And of course, kids are always ready to jump in front of the camera. These are school kids in their uniforms. And the cow gets to park himself with the bikes, because remember, the cows more or less have the right of way. This is all for puja or worship. Of course, southern India is very plentiful in flowers, especially jasmine and other wonderful smelling flowers. The women wear long skeins of jasmine and marigolds in their hair, just on a daily basis. This is not for a party. And this is some of the stuff they use, like there might be, the vermilion is the red, and they use that to put on, the priest puts it on the forehead after you do the puja. This is a deity, I'm not sure which one it is, but again, all of those marks are the vermilion that the worshipers put after they say a prayer. More interesting statuary from Hinduism. It's got thousands of gods. It's pantheistic. These guys are pushing a cart. There's a lot of temple processions where they haul out these carts, and it's just a constant carnival all over the country because there's always some festival or procession going on. Having a coconut, and that's a jackfruit. See the size of the men? Pretty interesting, huh? Anyway, it tastes horrible. I hate it. It sort of tastes like bubble gum, and I think it's really obnoxious stuff. Okay, now we're gonna go to Kerala. Okay, this was my second trip. Okay, so Kerala is right next to Tamil Nadu. Here it is. This, it's famous for the Ayurvedic medicine, which is Ayurvedic healing, which is more or less herbal healing. I don't know a lot about it. I did have a treatment though, which actually kind of made me feel better, but I'm not very good with massages because I can't lie still. So I got really antsy and I got tenser than if I hadn't had the massage at all. So I really shouldn't have them. But anyway, so Kerala was, basically it's primarily a Christian state. It was, the Portuguese colonized it way back in the age of exploration. Vasco da Gama is buried in a church in the town of Kochi, where I went. It's also a communist state, so you'll see an image of Che Guevara, the Argentinian Cuban revolutionary. They're famous for their butterfly nets, which are worked with rocks tied to ropes. And also the spice warehouses, some of them are from back in the Portuguese time. And in order to preserve the spices, they incubate them in lye, which sounds really strange because lye is corrosive. But so you'll see some spices that are incubated with, they're very white. You'll see the warehouse, and they pack the boxes with these stencils with the name. They spray through the stencil to put the name on the box. And also Kerala is very famous for Kathakali theater. It is one of the oldest forms of theater in the world, and it originated in Kerala. It is based on Hindu epics such as the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And after I went to the town of Kochi, I went a little further south to the town of Aleppo, where I got a houseboat and toured the backwaters, which are like lagoons and inlets from the sea. And you get this big boat. And I had a boat all to myself, believe it or not, with a crew of 3 waiting on me. It was only $100 a night. A whole boat to myself, a crew of 3 waiting on me. They kept feeding me. You know, it was just amazing. And then we moored next to a rice paddy, and I slept next to a rice paddy, which was so peaceful. It was fantastic. And then later I took a spice tour to the hills. There's lots of spice plantations. We saw lots of things like tea, rubber, cardamom, pepper. And on the way, I stopped and had a drink of palm toddy. There are these bars called toddy bars, and what they do is they tap the trunk of the palm tree, and the liquor just comes out of the palm tree. And I said to the guy, I said, why don't you bottle this stuff and export it or sell it? He said, you could never cork this stuff, it'd break the bottle. Because it's so effervescent. It just keeps effervescing. Okay, so we'll take a look at those. Vasco da Gama. It's one of the, I think, might be the oldest church on the subcontinent. Touching up the halo. There's Che Guevara, communist leader, revolutionary. Cobras. Can't go to India and not see cobras. They even come on the second-class trains. These are the butterfly nets. And I got to pull the ropes. The fishermen egged me on, and so I pulled the ropes. Okay, wait, but there's the rock. And that's me helping. I was no help. These are spices. I'm not sure what that is. It might be cardamom. I'm not sure. Warehouse. Sorting. That's encased in lye for preservation. It could be ginger root or something. Those are the stencils. She was just somebody selling tea there next to that painting. I thought she was intriguing. And this is the Kathakali theater. It's really, really relaxing because you get to watch them make up for almost an hour before they even start performing. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the Punjab. Okay, now the Punjab is in the north. It's this gray state here. And that's where the Sikhs have their holiest temple, the Golden Temple of Amritsar. Oh! Okay. Okay, now why did it do that? What a naughty thing. Okay, so this was actually, I would recommend this to everyone. It's my favorite experience in India. The Golden Temple is just incredible. I'm not a very peaceful person, but I felt peaceful there. And I stayed there 2 whole days and just stayed inside the temple area. Now, Amritsar means tank of nectar or pool of nectar. And around Sikh temples, they built a big tank of water. And people bathe in it to purify themselves. That's their belief. And so while I run these images, I'm going to play music to sort of make it a little bit more mellow, hopefully, and so that I don't say so much. And by the way, I'm taking the fusion approach because I really should be using Sikh hymns, because at the Golden Temple, it's open 24 hours a day. It has a communal kitchen. Pilgrims come from all around, especially Sikh pilgrims, and they're all fed for free. They're all housed for free. And I ate in the communal kitchen. When you enter, you have to wash your hands and you have to step through a foot bath. You will see a vendor of a bracelet, a particular bracelet. It's a steel, I think it's steel bracelet, which is a sign of Sikh faith. The people were wonderful. I felt just surrounded by love. It was just so beautiful. And every day, the Golden Temple's in the middle of the tank, and you have to walk down a bridge to get to the Golden Temple. And I'm a little claustrophobic. I don't like walking on bridges. In fact, I even thought about jumping over the rail at one point because the people really pressed together. But anyway, every morning they take the holy book, which is called the Guru Granth Sahib, and they take it from one of the buildings into the Golden Temple. And they sing all day long, and it's broadcast, these beautiful, beautiful hymns. And then at the end of the day, they take the book back across the bridge from the Golden Temple to its resting place for the night. And you're also going to see oh, by the way, there was a massacre here in 1919. The British troops fired on a crowd of unarmed Indian protesters. This was during the British Empire. And so there's a big park there that has an eternal flame commemorating this massacre. There was also a Hindu temple I went to, which was interesting because they tried to copy the Golden Temple. In a sense, they had their temple in the middle of a big tank or lake. And it was interesting, there was another Hindu temple I went to where there was they have a lot of fertility symbols. Hinduism is it's very related to fertility and even sexuality. Of course, fertility is related to sexuality. But anyway, you go through this tunnel in the temple. And it's sort of like rebirthing, because when you come out of the temple, there is a sacred cow. There's a cow's udder, not a real one, hanging there. And they rub the cow's udder as a form of sort of taking a blessing. So you're going to see the cow's udder at the end of the tunnel. And then the final thing in this is the Indo-Pakistani border. Now, if we on our border did what they do on that border, the Indian-Pakistan border, I think things would be a lot better. What they do is they have a border closing ceremony every single night. And on one side of the border is a stadium where the Indians, lots of people come. The Indians sit here and cheer. And on this side, the Pakistanis sit and cheer. And then they have soldiers on both sides wearing these great turbans with coxcombs and goose-stepping. And on one side, the Indians are screaming, Hindustan Zindabad, which is long live India. And on the other side, they answer and say, Pakistan Zindabad. And they're just yelling and waving flags, and they do this every night to close the border. It is very, very neat. Okay, let me get this going. Oops, just a second. Okay. Now, I was just going to tell you about the music. I chose this music, and if anybody sees this on TV, if any Sikhs happen to see this on TV, I want to apologize that it's not Sikh music. But I thought this music was this singer has a very tender voice, and that was a feeling this visit to the Golden Temple evoked in me. So I felt the music, at least from my point of view, it really expressed my feelings about this trip.
शराब चीज ही ऐसी है न छोड़ी जाए ये मेरे यार के जैसी है न छोड़ी जाए शराब चीज ही ऐसी है न छोड़ी जाए
That's taking the book back. I didn't use flash, so I had no tripod.
बदलते देखा है हर एक शय को जहां में
The kitchen.
बदलते देखा है हर एक शय को जहां में बदलते देखा है मगर ये
They all pitch in to prepare.
न छोड़ी जाए ये मेरे यार
Garlic.
के जैसी है
He's serving the lentils from the bucket. Communal kitchen.
शराब चीज ही ऐसी है
Everybody watches up. I mean, those that are working. And just everybody wanted me to take their picture, and the looks of love in their eyes is just incredible.
इसी के दम से पिघलती है ये बोझल रातें इसी के दम से पिघलती है ये बोझल रातें इसी के दम
Now the Hindu temple.
है ये बोझल रातें
Hanuman the monkey god.
मगर ये पानी के
See the thing on the baby's forehead? That's the vermilion, and there's the udder. Pakistan border, India-Pakistan border. Oh, I have to stop here. Forgot to tell you that the trucks kept going from India into Pakistan. They line up at the border at night because the border's going to close and they have to wait till the next morning. And you see it says blow horn. You're supposed to blow your horn. Which I hate people blowing horns, but there you're supposed to blow your horn. So there's a lot of truck drivers at the border. Lining his turban. This is the border closing ceremony. That's the Indian flag. Is it? shouting Hindustan Zindabad. Next we're going to go to Gujarat. Okay, so Gujarat was the state in which Gandhi had his ashram. I went to the ashram. But I was actually going to go there to go to the Jain temples. Jainism is another religion in India, and one of the things, they have lots of temple complexes where you have to climb up these mountains to get to them. And for people who can't walk up the mountain, you can be carried in a sedan chair. Which I was sort of dreaming of doing. But I didn't get there. I changed my mind, and basically I went to the capital city for a day or two, and then I went to this area here. It's sort of near Pakistan. It's a desert. It's called the Rann of Kutch. And this area is very rich in craft villages, villages that keep these ancient crafts alive, and different tribal people live there. So that's what I decided to do. Now I wanted to mention about, you know, being safe or being in danger. The first three in Tamil Nadu, we weren't in any danger, and in Kerala, you know, all those spices, they say, you know, like there were a lot of spices but no danger. So sometimes danger is a spice in and of itself. I learned that by living in Afghanistan. In the Punjab, you know, everything was calm. But in Gujarat, I got licked by a dog on my heel, and I was really paranoid because I have heard that because the rabies is in the saliva, if you have a slight cut, that it can go in your bloodstream. But I ended up talking to different people, and they said, oh, don't worry, you know, because my heels are so calloused, I don't think there's a crack there, you know. So, the really bad thing, I'd say the most dangerous thing that happened to me there was taking an overnight sleeper bus. These sleeper buses, they may be good in some countries, but here it was terrible. Basically, it's like a berth in a train where they instead of having seats in the bus, they made a bunk below and one up high. And so anyway, I was in the one up high, but either the bus had no shocks and the road was full of holes, or the bunk itself was like made out of rubber, or not rubber, it was like it wasn't firm. So all night long, I was thrown into the air. And just to stay on the bed, I had to like clench all my muscles, so that by the time I got there in the morning, I felt like I had done maybe 10,000 sit-ups. I hurt so bad that when I got up and walked, it was really horrible. But anyway, but I got there and it was well worth it because, well, first, what we're going to see here is, we're going to see the capital of Gujarat, which is called, it used to be called Ahmedabad, but now it's pronounced Ahmedabad. And there are these these old neighborhoods that are called the poles, and they're very narrow, and they've got ornate houses that are very old and run down, but with carved balconies, and lots of stray dogs. Now I decided to go exploring these at 8 o'clock in the morning while the dogs still ruled, and it was really scary. But anyway, while I was walking through there, I came upon these two women standing next to a puddle of red. Now what was the red? It was dye from an Indian festival called the Festival of Colors. It's called Holi, H-O-L-I. And it's a yearly festival that apparently originated with fertility rites. And so they go around throwing color at each other, and everybody gets covered with all different color. So anyway, if you see this red puddle next to these two women, it's just color because the festival took place a couple of nights earlier. And then also, Ahmedabad, Gujarat is famous for these wells. They're called baoli. And these wells are like buildings, but instead of being built up, they're built into the ground. And they're absolutely beautiful. We're going to see a couple of pictures of the well. And then after that, I took the overnight bus to the part of Gujarat called Kutch. And it had had an earthquake about 3 years ago. So I was coming from a country where all the buildings, well, most of the buildings are ruined, although they're building a lot of new ones, but there's lots of ruined buildings. And I went to this place that also was full of ruined buildings with cracks and everything. And what we're going to see is a palace, 2 palaces, in which everything is the same as it was, but it looks like it's been through an earthquake. And they still let people go in the building. I mean, like, and there's pigeons in there, and the pigeon droppings are all over the chandeliers. But the most amazing thing is the Maharajas, because there's a picture of a Maharaja, a prince, who had killed a leopard. And during the British Empire, the British would, and the Maharajas, the princes, they had alliances. And they would go hunting together. And of course, it was a big thing in the 19th century to have your trophies. You know, your leopard or your hippopotamus or whatever. So this palace, ruined palace, was full of like tigers with no teeth, deer with no antlers, what else? Hippos with no tusks. These were all trophies, but the earthquake had ruined them all. And I've got some pictures. That was a really eerie place. But the other thing was the mirrors. Everywhere the mirrors were ruined. So have you ever looked in an old mirror where you can't see your image? There were so many of these mirrors. And I started thinking, this is exactly what I need, you know? The world is all vanity. And you know, so I took a picture of myself looking into one of these ruined mirrors. And I thought, yeah, this really makes me feel, it just makes me feel like I sort of, that this is the way it's supposed to be. Sort of, as you age, you know. And then I went to the craft villages, and it's very nice because each village, they can be a different tribe as well as they do a different craft. And we saw textiles, but also bells. There was a village where everybody made bells, and I saw a bell made from start to finish. And then finally I went to a town on the ocean. I guess it was the Arabian Sea. My oceans aren't too good here. But anyway, it was a shipbuilding town. And you'll see one of the ships being built. This is in a mosque. See the red puddle? This is a mosque. This is the well. This is below the ground. Queen Victoria, she suffered too. Okay, here's the earthquake effects, the palaces. Look at the ceiling. See the pigeons up there? All these trophies are in terrible shape. That's a hippo. No eye. Well, he would have a glass eye. Surrounded by cobwebs. Mirrors. These curtains were reflected in the portraits. There were also portraits in this hall. That's me. I'm very into reflections. These were some other tourists, Indian tourists in the palace. 6 fingers. Is it 6?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, small.
Textile blocks, wood blocks. I took a tour with her. She was into the textiles. After they die, they wash them. She's dipping the bell. The bell maker. Firing the bell. He's got henna on his hands, and he's a Muslim. Oh, that's me on the Ran of Kutch. Now I gotta tell a little story about this one. Oops. I had to get special permission to go here because it's going near the Pakistani border. But I just, I just wanted to stand on it. So anyway, it's a very interesting place. And then we went down to the shipbuilding town. This is a Jain temple.
Are they wooden ships?
Yes, you'll see it. This is a Jain temple. Camels like to eat in dumpsters, like goats. That's the ship, that's the boat, wooden boat. Boat maker. Two more places to go. Orissa. Orissa is on the Bay of Bengal over here, and it's very rich in tribals. However, on the border about here, they've created a new state called Chhattisgarh, where there's a Maoist insurgency. So when I told my Indian colleague I was going on a tribal tour of Orissa, she thought it was crazy. She said I would never go near those tribals. And the thing is, some of them do join the Maoists, but others of them are actually just, they get sucked into it because they can't help it. The guerrillas are there and their villages telling them what to do, and they're vulnerable and they can't do anything about it. And they've been used as human shields as well. So we're going to see a lot of tribals, and there's a lot of body piercing for any of those of you who are into that. Most of the women wear rings in their noses. In addition, I went to two other towns. I went to a village that has the Sun Temple at Noank. And this temple was supposed to be like a chariot of some of the gods. There's a huge chariot wheel on the side of the temple. And also I went to one of the holiest Hindu temples, which is at a town called Puri. And the name of the temple is Jagannath Temple. Now you may know the English word juggernaut. A juggernaut is something that crushes you. It's an English word. However, Jagannath is actually a Hindu god, and he's supposed to be the Lord of the world. And every year in this town, Puri, they take out this monster cart. I mean, it's huge and weighs tons. And men pulled this cart with the god in it through the streets. And in the past, during the British Empire, they were actually, sometimes they got crushed under the wheels. They fell down and got crushed by the wheels. So they have to do it differently now by law, apparently. But so we're going to see the Sun Temple at Noank, as well as the Jagannath Temple, and then the tribal area. Oh, I have to tell a story first. Oh yeah, I told you that a lot of these Hindu temples and things, a lot of the statuary and the gods, the goddesses are very voluptuous, okay? And some of these temples are just completely covered with erotic sculptures. All related to the fertility, aspect of the religion. Well, anyway, I decided to get this guide because I thought, hey, I want to know something, So he's going to tell me something, but he turned out to be a real, sleazy guy. Real sleazy guy. Started saying sleazy things. And I thought he looked like a fine gentleman, you know? So it was like, so that was, and then after I got another tour guide to go to the tribal area, and he was a very, very nice gentleman. But that was an interesting aspect of this particular, that's the Sun Temple. Like I say, it's meant to be like a chariot. And that's an erotic sculpture, but there are things much, much more graphic than that. I don't use a tripod, so these are kind of fuzzy images, but I like the colors in them. I like to joke and say he's my guru. He was selling tea, but I decided to make him my guru for the time I was drinking the tea. And this is Jagannath, the Lord of the world. This is the Jagannath temple. Candies for worship or puja, offerings. And that's Jagannath, I think, with his brother and sister. Like I say, these processions are very common. They happen all the time around the temples. Those are all pictures of Jagannath. I bought one. I was told that this guy was smoking marijuana or hash or something. Okay, this is the cremation ground. And if you can imagine, they are burning bodies here. Now, I saw them bringing bodies. Of course, I didn't take a picture of the bodies. But they had several fires, and they just bring them and burn them. And right below it is a carnival atmosphere. People on the beach cooking fish, swimming, cavorting. A very strange juxtaposition, obviously. Now, this was my tour guide for the tribal areas. I'm going to run the tribal ones, and I'm going to play. I'm going to play this piece of music that some of you may not like. But let me just see if I've got it in the right place. But I think it's very appropriate for this. Yeah. Okay, I'll turn it down. Because this is a sort of a tribal music, not from this area. Like I say, it's a fusion approach. But it is very nasal, and I like this kind of music. You may not, but I want you to get the flavor for the tribal area. Okay, so we'll start it. Whoops. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't talk about that. Oops. Okay, we'll go back to it. We went to an alcohol market. Everybody was selling alcohol. And they said you have to leave by 1 o'clock because everybody's going to start fighting. And the men are carrying bows and arrows. So you will see pots where they have the alcohol in the pots. The necklaces are to prevent tiger attacks. so after we went through the tribal areas, by the way, some of those pictures, it looks like I'm sort of like, you know, hiding behind a tree or something. You couldn't get close to them. So you had to kind of make believe you weren't taking a picture. And so you had to keep your distance. I had a pretty good zoom. But sometimes, like my tour guide, he said, make believe you're taking a picture of me. And I think you saw one where he was standing there like this, but you could see all the pots. So, you know, because they really could get angry if you pointed the camera at them. And after we went to the tribal area, we came back and went to an artist's village. And this particular artist is, I don't remember his name actually, which is really shameful because he's supposed to have been honored by the Indian government for his artwork. And the whole village, all the fronts of the houses are painted with this art. It's a village of artists. All right, I hope we have time just to do the last folder, because actually I saved the best to the last. Oh, God, I closed it again. The last place I went to was Kashmir. And Kashmir's been off limits for a very long time because of supposedly the insurgency against the Indian government. Because I went to India and Kashmir. Kashmir is divided between Pakistan and India. And many years ago, when I lived in Bangladesh, about 20 years ago, I was working in Bangladesh, and at the time, India was supposed to have allow a referendum for Kashmir. Let me just get the map up here. All right, so Kashmir's it's called the state of Jammu and Kashmir, okay? And then Pakistan's over here. And of course, India and Pakistan have had a couple of wars about this area, and now it's a de facto border. It acts as a border, but it's not really a border. It's called the line of control. And it was basically the ceasefire line in the last war between India and Pakistan. Now, Kashmir, I went to the city of Srinagar, which is the capital of Kashmir, and there's a heavy police presence there. It sort of felt more, I mean, it didn't really feel like Afghanistan, but it was more of an iffy place of all the places I went to in India. And the other thing is, about a couple of days before I went there, the BBC reported that a grenade was thrown in the market, and that then the police opened fire and some shopkeepers were killed, and that the locals, you know, they closed all the shops to honor the dead, but they were really, basically the Kashmiris don't like the Indian Army being there. They've never liked the Indian Army being there. And I stayed on a houseboat. There's a lake there where there's many houseboats. That's the reason people go up there. And it's absolutely, they say it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. And you will see that this lake is absolutely gorgeous. The host of the houseboat I stayed on, when he was only about 40, but when he was 20, he left Kashmir because all the young men were hauled in, a lot of them were hauled in and interrogated, accused of being insurgents against the Indian government. Because, you know, basically, and even he said, you know, he would like Kashmir to be independent. So it's still kind of got tension, but it's having tourism now. And so the only part of the town we weren't supposed to go in was the old city, at least not alone. But I did take a tour of the mosques of the old city. The mosques are unique. The mosque, it's a Muslim area. The mosques are unique to Kashmir. The architecture is unique to Kashmir. Okay, so let me see what else I want to say before. I'm just going to run through the slides. Okay, we stayed in the houseboat, and it's on the lake, and it was overcast most of the time. The reflections are so beautiful. of houses and boats, the reflections are so ethereal that I began to take pictures only of the reflection and not of the thing itself. And I started thinking about Plato's allegory of the cave. You know, are the shadows real, or are the things that cast the shadow real? And in the same way, is the reflection real, or is the thing that makes the reflection real? I got very philosophical, obviously. And then the lake's very big, and then you come around and you go through this canal right behind the old city. And this canal at one point gets very, very, it has a lot of sewage in it. Most of the lake is very clean, but this one area, and I was at the prow of a canoe. It's called a shikara. I was at the prow, and we bumped a dead animal with the prow. And I was really nervous that if this thing capsized, we would really be in some toxic waters there. But anyway, the old city's really fascinating. The houses almost look European, like canals. Like, I haven't been to Holland, but it just reminded me of pictures I've seen of some of these half-timbered houses on canals in Europe. And then we went to the Mogul Gardens. The Mogul Gardens, there was a song that my mother always sang called, it's called Kashmiri Love Song. And I just want to read the lyrics before I run the pictures. Basically, it's a really surprising song. It was actually a poem, because it's about love between an Indian man and a white British woman. Okay. And so the lyrics are these. Pale hands I loved beside the Shalimar, where are you now? Who lies beneath your spell? Whom do you lead on rapture's roadway far, before you agonize them in farewell? Pale hands pink-tipped, like lotus buds that float on those cool waters where we used to dwell. I would have rather felt them round my throat, crushing out life, than waving me farewell. Okay, so pretty interesting. Okay, these are really the most beautiful pictures of all. And that guy's harvesting seaweed. They use it for fertilizer. This is the military post. See the barbed wire? Even on the lake, there is a military presence. And that's me. I got to tell you the story about this one. This is what the women wear in the winter. It's wool. And this thing's called a fire pot. They actually put an ember in there, put it up under this garment, and with one sleeve out, and hold it underneath the garment with an ember in it. And that's how they stay warm. is the dirty part. I think that's the animal we hit, that black thing.
Look at the smell.
It doesn't smell. It doesn't smell. Shalimar Garden. This is it. my tour guide for the mosques. He was the brother of the houseboat owner. And this is a typical mosque, Kashmiri mosque. That's also a mosque, but more of a rustic. The next one's very rustic.
Did they not have the crescent on top?
No. And this one we went in, each column was made from a cedar tree, a whole cedar tree. See the fort on the hill behind? The Indian Army's in the fort, looking down on everyone.
Now?
Mhm. Each one of those is a cedar tree trunk. Yes, prayer rugs. Of course, the police are watching them, see? He's got an AK-47 there. This is all paper mache. The facades of these mosques is covered with paper mache that's been covered with whatever preserves it. And green, of course, the color of Islam, all those green flags there. It's paper mache.
They didn't mind you taking pictures.
No, in fact, Kashmir seemed the most liberal of any Muslim place I've ever been. They didn't seem, even the women didn't seem to care if I took pictures. Nobody got annoyed. Oh, I wanted to point out this last picture because to me it's interesting how people can worship. She's praying, and this guy's selling books right next. You know, it's like just life is all mixed together. Things are all mixed together. You can pray anywhere at any time. The next mosque we went to had a very fabulous paper mache interior. Not very many women wore burqas there, but these two were sitting outside this particular mosque. All of that colored stuff up there is paper mache. And the only thing that ruins it is that darn fluorescent light. But this metal thing they're touching with the chains has some kind of Quranic scripture engraved on it. And of course, that's how Muslims, that's one of the positions of prayer for Muslims, is holding the hands like this. Paper mache on the wall. They said, who the heck is she? See how the houses look kind of European?
Yeah.
At least to me they do. Lots of stray dogs. Those are all houseboats there, but the lake goes way around. It's not all congested like that everywhere. And there you see the fort on the hill up there. Okay, this is, I think, the last slide, and very interesting because I was told that, well, you see what it says. The Jew, what it says about Jesus Christ. Sorry that it was so long. This was a trial run. It was a trial run. It went more than 10 minutes overtime. Thank you. Yeah.
They don't have clotheslines or anything. I just noticed stuff is just thrown. How do they dry their clothes?
Well, a lot of times I've seen them put it on bushes on the ground,
Oh.
over a railing. Yeah, I mean, probably in the cities they have, I don't know. I think in the cities they have those clotheslines that go between balconies and high rises and stuff.
Do
But,
they speak a lot of English there?
well, English is one of the official languages of India. So a lot, you can easily get by in English all over India. Yeah, but India has many native languages as well. Any other questions?
They wear a lot of clothes, is it because it's hot and they keep the sun off of them?
That's part of it, yeah.
Are they hot?
Well, cotton, they have very light cottons that can breathe,
The women even have their heads covered indoors?
Yeah, well, they might get hot, yeah. But that's the Islamic tradition to cover their hair. I mean, they do get hot, but they
A lot
just...
of the women are tattooed a great deal.
Well, those are the tribals, yeah, they're tattooed.
Yeah.
The tribal, that's part of the tribal tradition, yes.
Cynthia, I'm interested in your travel in and out of Kabul. I mean, did you just decide in Kabul, you go down to the airport in Kabul and decide you wanted to go to?
Well, no, we made arrangements and then we asked the university to take us to the airport with the university van. And at the airport, Air India was very, very, I mean, the Taliban are targeting Indians in Kabul. And so they've blown up the Indian embassy. They've tried to blow it up twice. They blew up a guest house just a few months ago, which was mostly Indians stay there. And so Air India, there are so many friskings that you are actually frisked. You get to the top of the stairs, and before you go in the plane door, you get frisked all over again. So I mean, it's lots of friskings. Yeah, and you just get used to it. I didn't mind it because I knew that it's very necessary. They don't want to take some Taliban on the plane. Yes?
First of all, the artistry in your pictures is wonderful. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for that. And
I think it was the subjects mostly.
But I was really struck by the tribal pictures, how similar, although not to the certain details, but how similar a lot of it is to African tribal.
I know. Yeah.
To like the rings around the neck, the types of jewelry. And
Well, my
piercings,
tour guide
just
told
all
me that
that.
actually Africans came to India, that these people were related to Africans, but eons ago, I didn't,
Yeah.
I'm not too good at listening to tour guides. I'm too busy rubbernecking, I don't attend very well, but he did say that Africans, came to
Because
India.
a lot of the people who are really tribal in Africa, of course, they've never left it. They haven't gone 50 miles from
Right.
where they were born. But
Right.
And
Yeah.
it really struck me.
Yeah, that's something that,
Mhm.
anthropologists or historians, but unfortunately I don't know anything about that.
Is
Yes.
it hot there?
No, it's not hot everywhere. If you're near the Himalaya, it can be very
Do
cool.
they have seasons?
It depends on where you are. If you're in the south, it's tropical all the time. It depends on where you are. The topography, the topography and the climates are very different because you've got mountain ranges and then you've got lots of, sea level areas.
So are you going back to Kabul, and where's your next adventure taking you?
I'm not going back to Kabul, at least not in September, not in August. That's when I would be going back. I don't know. I'm just shedding. I'm shedding all these experiences. They're weighing me down. I mean, that's why I have to do the show. It's just like it helps me process what I did, what you know what I mean. If I didn't do that, I might not even look at the pictures again. And it took me many hours to select these pictures. I mean, each place I went to, I probably took 300 pictures. And out of each place, I selected 30 or 40 pictures. But while I was looking at them, and I was listening to music the whole time I was looking at them, it was so great because I was re-experiencing the whole thing. And if I hadn't done this show, I wouldn't have done that. So I'm really glad I did it. That's why I wanted to do it. Yes?
First of all, your enthusiasm is terrific, and your artistry, as the woman said earlier, is just terrific. I missed the beginning, I apologize. When you traveled, were you traveling by yourself?
Okay, I took 6 trips and 4 were alone. Sometimes I would fly to Delhi and back with my Indian colleague and her husband. They both worked at the university. And but I would spend the last day in Delhi with them. But the rest of the week I would be alone. But 2 times I traveled with Andy, the guy who liked to drink beer and smoke cigarettes and had to get out of Kabul to really indulge himself. And then with these 2 women, I went to Kashmir. However, that was not very pleasant. I mean, that was, you know, basically, we had very different approaches to travel. I usually travel alone, and I had never traveled with either of these women before. I thought they were like acting like the ugly American. You know, this one woman, when we went houseboat shopping, you get in one of those canoes and you go from houseboat to houseboat, see which one you want to rent. She was just yelling at everybody and acting like a mad woman, and I was mortified. You know, so you know, live and learn.
And to tag on that, so did you detail your trip ahead of time where you wanted to go? How did you get your tour guides, those kinds of things?
Most of the time I make it up as I go along, but for the Orissa, the tribals, I got that tour guide by email from Kabul. I had it all set up. Yeah, and I usually don't go on you know, that kind of tour, but I would not, you know, to go there alone would have been virtually impossible and very dangerous. So.
How about one more question and then we'll go.
Oh, one more question.
Yeah.
Yes, Barbara.
I was going to ask, when you go into the country, do you have to wear their dress like they do? I mean, would it have not been acceptable to dress in that?
Well, I mean, people dress very differently, and it depends on who you're dealing with. In India, you've got so many kinds of dress. I mean, you've got Muslims, you've got Hindus, you've got Sikhs, you've got Jains, you've got all different kinds of people. When I was coming from Kabul, I tended just to dress pretty much the same way as I dressed in Kabul. I usually wore a long-sleeved shirt and usually a turban. Yeah. So I usually blended in, and I didn't have to try because I was already dressing that way in Kabul in order to fit in Kabul. Although actually a turban in Kabul doesn't make me fit in. No women wear turbans in Kabul. You know, in fact, one of my students says you shouldn't wear that. They're going to think you're Taliban. Well, thank you so much for coming. I really